Well, welcome everyone. It is 2 minutes after 1, so we are going to get started and anticipate that people will join as we go along. So I am Stacey Ann Berry, the chapter president for Blacks in Technology Foundation. I will give you a brief overview of our amazing organization so you can learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So established in 2012, Blacks in Technology is dedicated to increasing the representation and participation of Black people in the technology industry and has distinguished itself from other tech organizations as the largest global nonprofit corporation to promote Black people in all aspects of technology by providing global programs at scale. So we have a very diverse network of people in our organization. We are 19,000 plus members and counting. We have students, we have people transitioning into tech and technologists, tech educators, IT professionals, tech startup founders, VCs, technology business leaders, and non-tech workers as well. We do provide career support, networking, and tech resources. So through our community-focused organizations, we have events such as these, virtual and in person. We have a lot of outreach initiatives as well. And our theme and mission is to stomp the divide by establishing a blueprint of world-class technology excellence and innovation by providing resources, guidance, networking, and opportunities for members to share their expertise and advance their careers. We have amazing benefits that's exclusive to our members, and it is free to join. So if you are not a member, please do join. This includes training and certification, support for job seekers. We also have a mentorship program where we pair you with a mentor. We have a support for startup entrepreneurs, and some of the support includes our $10,000 pitch competition that we have at our annual conference. We also have executive programs. We do some charitable giving and give back, as well as several resources and tools. We do have an extensive list of partners and sponsors, which you can see on the slide. Some include Google, Disney, AWS, and the list goes on. So we do have 68 chapters and counting in approximately 19 countries. So of course we are in 39 states in the United States, and we have our global chapters. We are in the motherland, so we're in Nigeria, we're in Kenya, Cameroon, South Africa, for example. We are in Germany, the UK, and we are also in Australia, and we recently launched into the Caribbean. We have 2 chapters there. So a little bit about our local team. We have a great team, many of whom have joined us today and some you'll hear from later. So the goal for the Toronto chapter is to strengthen the ecosystem for Black tech founders and entrepreneurs in Ontario, but also serve as a connector to help Black professionals access technical training, professional development, mentorship, job opportunities, and networking. And lastly, help Black students from multiple disciplines identify career opportunities in the tech sector. So the reason you are all here today is for our workshops, how to prepare for a career in data science. And we have 2 amazing speakers. We're going to share some insights and provide you an overview. After that, we will have a moderated discussion, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I'd like to turn it over to our administrative director, Raynell Manning, who will introduce our first speaker.
Hi, everyone. Like Stacey said, I'm the administrative director for BIT Toronto, and I'll be introducing our speakers for today. And also looks like our marketing director is here as well. So if she'd like to do the French translation, she's definitely welcome to do that as well. But first we have Chike Odenibo. He is a data science developer at Bell Canada and is currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Data Science and Business Analytics at HEC Montreal. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from McGill University and has had prior data science experience in banking, loyalty marketing, and higher education. Outside of work, he enjoys rollerblading, reading, and playing basketball. He volunteers as the administrative assistant for Blacks in Technology Foundation's Toronto chapter.
So I'll do for the French, for our French participant here. Sorry, my camera is not on. I just have technical issues here. But yes, so as she was saying, we have Chike Odenibo, qui est actuellement développeur en sciences des données chez Bell Canada. Et il poursuit une maîtrise en gestion en sciences des données et analytique d'affaires à HEC Montréal. Il est titulaire d'un baccalauréat en commerce de l'université McGill et possède une expérience préalable en sciences des données dans les domaines de la banque, du marketing de fidélisation et de l'enseignement supérieur. Et en dehors du travail, il aime faire du roller, lire et jouer au basket. Et il est notre adjoint administratif pour BIT Toronto, BIT in Technology Toronto.
Thank you. And so our next guest is Kashana Peck. She's the founder and CEO of Toronto Women in Data Science, with an ambitious goal to help 1 million women become data literate, increase the recruitment and retention of women in data roles, and increase the number of products and services powered by data that have inclusive design practices at their core. Kashana has made it her mission to create spaces for women in data science, an industry that is booming and begging for more diversity. She has 5+ years of leading data teams and strategy in nonprofits, fintech, and advertising across all business teams. She started Toronto Women in Data Science in 2018 and took on the company full-time as of July 2021. She's an advocate and speaker for diversity and inclusion in STEM, who has been featured in various media outlets such as The Globe and Mail, Breakfast Television, and CP24. Kashana is completing her Master's of Management in Artificial Intelligence at Queen's University Smith School of Management.
Donc, notre deuxième intervenante est Kishona Peck. Kishona est la fondatrice et présidente directrice générale de Toronto Women in Data Science, un organisme ayant pour objectif d'aider 1 million de femmes à acquérir des connaissances en sciences des données et aussi augmenter le recrutement et la rétention des femmes dans les carrières liées aux données, tout en augmentant le nombre de produits et de services alimentés par des données inclusives. Kishona a pour mission de créer des espaces pour les femmes dans la science des données, une industrie en plein essor et qui a définitivement besoin de plus de diversité. Kishona a plus de 5 ans d'expérience dans la gestion d'équipes en sciences des données et en stratégie dans des organisations à but non lucratif, dans l'industrie des technologies financières et dans la publicité. Elle a lancé Toronto Women in Data Science en 2018 et s'y consacre à temps plein depuis juillet 2021. Elle est une défenseure et une conférencière pour la diversité et l'inclusion dans les STEAM, et elle a été mise en avant dans différents médias tels que The Globe and Mail, Breakfast Television et CP24. Kishona termine actuellement sa maîtrise en gestion en intelligence artificielle à la Smith School of Management de l'Université Queen's.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raynell and Patricia, for this introduction, bilingual, which is great and awesome. So Chike will be our first presenter. So we will pass it over to you, Chike, where you can share your screen.
All right. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So thank you everyone for being here. My name is Chike, and today I'm going to be presenting on how to prepare for a career in data science, mainly from the perspective of someone that's working in the industry. So the agenda for today is we're first going to be talking about an introduction to what is data science. I'll then touch on what the top skills are for the job, tips for landing a job in the industry, and finally emerging trends. So the introduction to data science. I want to start, before going into the formal definitions, to talk about an example of how data science has been leveraged in the past. So this is an iconic case that happened in 2012 when Target was able to predict that a woman who was underage was pregnant before her father did. To show you the power of the model had learned from historical data that the purchasing habits of pregnant women tend to shift towards unscented products when they hit their second trimester. And so the model was able to kind of predict even when she was going to give birth, and then they started sending ads to the parents' house, and the father found out that she was pregnant a few weeks later. But here I'm just trying to give you an example of just how powerful data science is and how the models can be used in a very real way to impact us in our day-to-day lives. So in terms of formal definition, I have this definition from IBM, but I want you to focus really on the parts that I highlighted in blue. Here we can see that data science combines math, programming, business knowledge in order to drive actionable insights and ultimately lead to decision-making that can drive value. So in a very practical way, this is what the data science pipeline looks like in an organization. You typically have your raw data that starts in either a SQL database, Excel, some sort of legacy server. It's extracted and modeled. So a model essentially is a simple representation of your raw data. So you can have data that's modeled in a machine learning way, which is the example I showed 2 slides earlier, where a model tries to predict something, but you can also have modeling being a visualization, or it can just be aggregating your data to make some interesting insights and summarization. And ultimately, the goal is to then feed this model information into decision making and then extract value from that decision making. So in a very practical way, this is what data looks like to a computer. So the first rule for any machine learning model is that your data has to be converted into numbers. Here we have on the left handwritten digits. This looks like the number 8. And at each cell of this matrix, you can see that there's a number if you look closely. And the dark shaded areas are numbers that are much closer to 1. And the light shaded areas are 0. On the right, you can see images of faces. Right, so you can see at each point, like this looks like a picture of probably Abraham Lincoln. And at each point, you can see kind of these numbers. And once you feed this into a model, the model can make some very powerful insights. This is an example of text data. For each row, right, you have a piece of text, which you can see on the far left corner. And for each column, you can see a single word that's in the vocabulary. And at the intersection of those two, of the word and the text, you can see the number of times that word occurs in that text. So this is a count vectorizer. It's used mainly in traditional machine learning models, but it can also be used and generate these powerful tools we have. And then this is a more advanced version of that. This is for, again, modeling language data. And it's these are called word embeddings. Essentially, they represent words as numbers that are learned through a neural network process. And you can essentially do word math with these words. So if you look at the bottom right, you can see the words man, woman, right? You can sum them together and then subtract the representation of the word queen, and then you'll get the representation of the word king. So this is a more powerful version of the previous, what I showed previously. And it's able to kind of capture more of this mathematical and semantic intuition of words. Finally, I'm going to be showing an example that I'll be modeling a little bit later on. But this is an example of a table that you typically see in a traditional setting. So I took this from a website called Kaggle that provides data science data sets. In the black columns, you can see these are like features for loan prediction, right? So on the right, you can see in blue that we're seeing if someone defaults or not on their payment. In the sense, Kaggle gives us this data, but when you work in a company, you typically have to generate these type of features. So here you can think, okay, maybe you want to add to the black columns, to the features set rather, you'd like to add something like neighborhood or like gender, like we have gender, but you can think of other features you want to add to your model. And in a company setting also, for your target label, you'd also want to think about what business rules you define to define that target, to define that someone has defaulted on their loan. Is it because they haven't paid for 8 months, 6 months, right? Is it because they filed for bankruptcy? Like there's a whole bunch of factors that in a company setting you have to think about. And even in your, like those of you that are pursuing data science, like these are the type of thoughts that you have to be integrating into your models. This is a simple model that I'm trying to present here. This is called a decision tree, and a decision tree is essentially a way to predict who's going to default or not on their loans. So essentially you take part of the data and you would build a model that would predict, okay, this person, if they're greater than the age of 30 years old, yes, they will not default. And if they're younger than 30, then you look at their income. Okay, if they're less than $40,000 income, then yes, they'll default. If not, then no. So this is the type of model that exists, but there's others that exist as well. Models that look at things like distance between observations. You can also try to fit a line, you can use neural networks, but this is a very powerful one already. And from an implementation standpoint, data science models can be coded quite easily in Python. So here we can see you're importing the necessary libraries and packages to build that model. On the second cell, you can see that you load that data set into the Python environment. Then you transform the data and you specify what you're looking to predict, as well as what features you're going to use to predict that observation. and then you split it into training and testing, and then you try to build a model that predicts that. So if you look at cell number 6, you first create the model. So all the complex mathematics is done in that number 1 cell, right? In terms of how the model decides its parameters. And then you fit the model, and if you look at cell number 8, you can see that the model was able to have an accuracy of 92%. And from an implementation standpoint, this is something you have to think to yourself. Like, let's say, for example, we had 100 observations, and of those 100 observations, 8 people defaulted on their loans and 92 didn't. If the model predicts that everyone won't default on their loans, like you have a 92% accuracy. So the model isn't good because you're just predicting the same for everyone. Another way to look at that, you have to start thinking about other metrics like recall. So of the 8, if you found 4 of the 8 people, then you have a 50% recall. So that's a much more robust way, and like you have to be able to explain that to a business partner. So in total, this only took 16 lines of code, and it generated a pretty powerful model. And that's it for the introduction. I'm going to now move on to like the top skills for data science, which can be broken down in these 3 pillars. So business skills, programming, and math. Depending on the type of job you're going to go for, some of these skills are going to be more important than others. But in the data science space, like you need all of these 3 to kind of come together in order to make for powerful teams. So in terms of business skills, number 1, you want to be able to blend technical and non-technical communication, right? Like your business partners don't really care about your accuracy; they care more about the bottom line and like how exactly does your solution help their business. Having an analytical mindset also kind of mixes with that. You have to be able to think like the business and asking the right questions. You also want to be able to manage stakeholders. So being able to tell them what's possible and what's not, and not always saying yes, let's do this, no, let's not do that. So, for those of you that are thinking of transitioning, like if you have some of these transferable skills already, like there's definitely a space for you in data science. Being able to present also results, and also being able to translate a business problem to a data science problem. This is a bit of a challenge because typically we're given raw data, but we also need to be able to convert data into business problems. Yeah, I'll move on to now the programming skills. So in terms of programming, this is essentially the PEP 8 style guide for Python, but I'll just mention it here because programming is important, because when you start working at a company, typically you work with other people. So people need to be able to read your code, understand your code. Your code needs to be fast so that it doesn't like crash servers in production. So your code needs to, number 1, be modular, reproducible, readable, and well documented. And then second point, you want your code to also not have as many repetitions, right? So a typical rule that I give myself is that when I write code, I want to be able to read the code as if I'm not technical, right? So if I have repetitive stuff like create functions, maximize efficiencies as well. Version control, so being able to regulate that, because when you're in a company also, you have to be able to version control your code. Finally, code testing and data manipulation. Data manipulation is also an important one, right? So using languages like SQL to be able to manage very large data sets and then convert them into something that you can use. And on the right, I have some advice on tools to use and to learn from in your projects. And as I mentioned before, you want to avoid writing just monolithic code. You want to be able to split your code into notebooks, have like each notebook being dedicated to something. And also like notebooks, they're like a lot of, maybe you're familiar with Jupyter Notebooks, but Jupyter Notebooks are very good for analyst type roles. Like I use Jupyter Notebooks in my day-to-day. But when you start thinking about deploying code in production, you want to be using more of these IDEs and like regular Python. So think about this if like you're interested in data science and having projects. Finally, I'm going to talk about the math skills. So these are basically all the pillars of mathematics. Linear algebra mainly used for data manipulations, and if you're coding certain models from scratch. Probability is very important. You have to be able to quantify the uncertainty of your models. So for example, in the example I showed about the people defaulting on their loans, you want to be able to say, okay, like this person has there's a difference between someone having 90% probability of defaulting and someone having like a 50% probability of defaulting. And even if they do default, like what's the probability of like how much money you're going to make from the person that's going to default, right? So there's levels to the probabilities. And this is also something you have to be able to report and explain to the business. Statistics, being able to interpret results. So you can think of in the previous part when I spoke about the accuracy, right? So being able to interpret like the accuracy and how that translates to the business. So calculus is used more for optimization and machine learning. I recommend just having an intuitive understanding. So as I mentioned, these are the three most important skills when it comes to mathematics. And these can all be learned like through school and through projects. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the top programming languages. So we can see like, and really the message I'm trying to get across here is that languages evolve. So like, don't try to like become very good at a language, for example, but more so learn how to apply what you're using. Like you have to be the brain behind it. So you can see like, for example, in 2004, MATLAB was like very popular. SAS also, and SAS is still used a lot today in companies. And you know, right now Python is taking the whole wave because you know you can put it on the cloud and you know it's open source. But everyone that was working, you know, those last like 10 years, like they had a lot of them had to transition into learning Python. So data science is this industry where you constantly have to be learning. And even like on this next slide, these are like the most common models that we see. So you can see in the past, support vector machines were very popular. And then like starting in 2012, like I was talking before about the image data, we were able to build these powerful models that were able to model image data, and language data as well followed. And then now we see that neural networks are the top thing. Neural networks might be the future, they might not, but just to show you that things like evolve over time, and it's important to be able to learn as the industry evolves. So in terms of tips for landing a job, they kind of fall in these three pillars. So number one, education, number two, projects, hackathons, and resume, and number three, networking. I won't expand on networking in the presentation, so I'll just talk about it a bit here. The importance of networking, like I'll say like going to meetup groups and being able to meet, because meetup groups allow you to be able to like hear from industry experts what's currently being used in industry, especially if you're someone that's still in school or if you're trying to transition into the field. So being able to attend those type of events, and then you know once you meet someone and you show them that you're really good at data science, that you evolved and you have the skill set. Data science is very much something where like if you find someone good, you really want to hold on to them. So networking is still important, but I didn't really expand on that here. So in terms of education, I'd say like the first step, you know, master the concepts, right? There's a lot of models that exist, and sometimes like it's easier to get stuck in learning the details of the models, but you really want to be able to understand concepts that transcend different models and transcends different applications. You know, consider pursuing a degree, have a lot of certifications. You know, typically people, when they enter data science, they start off as business analysts or data or BI analysts, and that requires a lot of SQL. And SQL is very hard to kind of have projects on. So for that type of thing, like I would say, like have as many certificates as you can, projects, boot camps. Consider like in your projects also, like consider the cost benefit like of the school that you're looking to apply for. If it has capstone projects, the alumni networks, and most importantly, number 5 is to always be learning, because data science is something that always evolves. And when you learn, like try to apply what you learn right away. In terms of projects and resume, yeah, definitely have a genuine interest in your projects. You know, you want your projects to have like a lot of meat to it, and you know, in order to have that type of meat, you have to have passion for what you're working on. So have genuine interest in your projects, participate in hackathons. Hackathons are a great way to put on your resume, especially if you do pretty well in them. And having something that's quantifiable that managers can see is also great. And also start where you are. Like if you're working in a company that has access to data or doesn't use it as much, like try to do something with it. Right? Like I think about my first job. I was doing stuff in Excel that was very like boring, but I was kind of doing it manually all the time. And then I built this like powerful VBA code that was able to do it in like 2 minutes, something that used to take me like an hour to do. So just start where you are, put that on your resume, and then you know try to build from there. And always focus on the value add when you specify things on your resume. So this is what the model was able to achieve or this is what like the actual business value of what we're able to do. And now finally, I'm going to touch on the emerging trends in the industry, with the main one right now being OpenAI and ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure like a lot of you might be aware of ChatGPT. So it's essentially a large language model that you ask questions to it, and then it answers you with quite accurate and powerful results. So you can use it if you want to learn how to code and whatnot. We're seeing like now a shift where artificial intelligence is more being applied to knowledge work, right? So right now, Microsoft announced that they're going to build OpenAI and ChatGPT features in their products. So you can imagine a future where, for example, you start a PowerPoint and then you just write to the PowerPoint what you want it to do, and then it generates what you want to do, right? So that's kind of where we're going to as a society. I would say like if you're trying to enter into this space, always like have the business mind, because I'll touch on this now. Neural networks and like ChatGPT is like basically trained on combinations of the internet. So like this is essentially the tool behind deep learning. It's called representational learning. And it's like in this example, we're fed images into this neural network model. And you can see at each layer of the neural network, it's learning representations of the data that it's fed on. And you can imagine like this concept is like, using images, and like at each level, these are all numbers, right? So we're putting face and then we have all these numbers, but you can also apply the same for text and whatnot. And that's what you're seeing with ChatGPT. You pass it as text and input, and then at each level, it learns a representation of what you're saying, and then it outputs to you what you want to know. So the main challenge here is that it's very much dependent on the data upon which it's trained. So like, let's say, for example, like in this case, if we feed it like if you put a dog, for example, the model won't learn that it's a dog. It won't know what it is. And that's the main difference between human and these powerful machine learning models. And like this is like a meme, like to show its current limitations. So ChatGPT, like you say, save me, and then it's asking you if you want to save it as a JPEG or if you want to save it as a PDF. And that's because the model was learned to learn in only those type of contexts. So it's very important to know that like AI has these limitations. And I'll leave you guys with this quote from Albert Einstein that speaks on like intelligence and what it is. And essentially he asked the question, and he says that imagination is more important than knowledge, right? This is what makes humans different from powerful models. So in your projects and what you're doing, like I'd always advise being able to show like that human knowledge and imagination, especially, and being like creative in order to like stand out, because right now we're seeing, especially now in the industry, that like AI is taking over a lot of the jobs. But I think like this like part of thinking is going to be very hard for a model to be able to automate for now. And with that, I want to thank you. This is the end of my presentation, and I pass it on to you, Stacey.
Awesome. Wow, Chike, I must say that was amazing. A good technical overview, some good insights. Love the quote you ended with. Before we move to Kishana's presentation, we just have one question that's specific to you from Dominique, and she asks, for the math skills, are there particular formulas that are popular and known as the minimum a data scientist should be knowledgeable of?
That's a good question. So I guess you're talking about the technical skills. So in terms of technical skills, some combination, depending on the role, but some combination of Python and like a scripting language like Python and data management languages like SQL. And just having like general knowledge of the basic machine learning models. And I'll say deep learning is becoming more and more important in the industry. So having some experience in deep learning as well. And yeah, having projects also that can speak to your knowledge.
Okay. And what about anything with math? Are there specific math skills that would be helpful in having as foundation based on her question? Or?
Yeah, well, those 3 points I mentioned, so probability, statistics, and machine learning.
Awesome.
Knowing those are the most important.
Okay, well, thank you so much again, Chike. And we'd like to turn it over to Kishana Peck.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen? Because I can't see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'll be talking about why data needs you. So Chike gave a great technical overview, so I'm going to try my best not to repeat the same things that Chike said. So my name is Kishana Peck. I'm the CEO of Toronto Women X in Data Science. I worked as a data leader across different industries and teams for more than 5 years. I was also the first data hire in a company or in a department. So that actually allowed me to create processes, lead initiatives, and build teams. So after experiencing firsthand gaps in inclusion as a Black woman in STEM, I decided to dedicate myself to improving these spaces and outcomes for everyone. I'm an advocate for diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I'm also a published author, and I write about navigating my career in mental health through poetry. So I started Toronto Women X in data science completely unintentionally. I was a data analyst in the department by myself, super eager. It was like my first job. And I was always taking courses and going to events, trying to make sure that I knew everything I needed to know because I didn't have any mentorship. And I came across a conference for women in data, but it was in the States and there was nothing like that in Canada. And I was like, oh, someone should do that. And I convinced myself that I could do it. I was like, oh, I could do it. It'll be small in the back room of a library. I can replay videos from the main US conference. I didn't have to do any of that. I was able to find women speakers and data from Canada, find sponsors, and we had more than 100 people attend. So I actually planned that all in 6 weeks while I was on a pre-planned trip for one of the weeks in Mexico, which I'm finding is where I get a majority of my luck from. Whenever I go there, good things happen for me. So I was at the back room at the first conference and I noticed that the room wasn't as diverse as we had hoped it to be. So we started to commit more to intersectionality to make sure that we weren't building something only for white women, for example, that we were ensuring that it was diverse enough on the stage and in the audience as well, and that a variety of people could benefit from our programs. So only 20% of women are in data professions. And as we add in more layers of intersectionality, it gets lower. For example, it's estimated that Black women are about 1%. So we have a community of over 4,100 with varying skills and experiences across Canada, and we're actually building STEAM in the US. So we have a vision to empower 1 million women to become data literate, increase the recruitment and retention of women in data roles, and also to influence inclusive innovation. So for us, what it means to be data literate is to understand data science's different business, technical, or ethical considerations. We emphasize that it could be something other than being a data scientist and being data literate, and you also don't need to write a line of code unless you want to. So data literacy for us is a spectrum. There are technical pieces, business pieces, ethical pieces. It's about understanding the fundamentals so that you're informed while you interact daily with data-powered solutions. So there are more and more commitments to diversity and inclusion, but when it comes to women, there's the possibility of losing out on the richness of intersectionality in recruitment and creating inclusive workplaces that increase retention, especially in STEM-driven professions. So I experienced this multiple times as I navigated my career, and it's something that I take with me as I'm moving through. And I've been very lucky to have the business that I was building the entire time, so that when I did leave my last role, I had somewhere to be able to generate revenue and generate income. Other women of color aren't so lucky, so they stay in psychologically violent environments, or they find new roles where the cycle of pet to threat restarts, or leave the workforce entirely and become financially unstable. So I'm committed to improving these spaces, and I hope that you are too. Lastly, we aim to influence inclusive innovation. So we believe in integrating product inclusion principles in the AI development cycle. So we provide programming that celebrates women in data and educates those interested in the field through events, mentorship, and data product co-creation. Some of our programs include conferences, masterclasses, our resource hub, and we are actually celebrating our 6th annual conference in April. So we've been doing this for 5 years. So here are some of our upcoming events. So we have a launch on February 3rd that you can attend. The website is at the bottom and it's also on the last slide. Our conference is in April. We have a resource hub with study guides for books on data, mainly dealing with data ethics and not the technical topics. We also have videos of past events, and we have our podcast that's good for people who are just learning about data or transitioning careers. So what is analytics? So analytics is the process of using data to make decision. There's 3 types of data analytics. So there's descriptive, so it describes what happened. So the focus is on statistics, visualization, reporting, business intelligence, and data modeling. So roles requiring these skills are available across all industries, and they're the first step in data maturity. The second type of analytics is predictive. So predictive anticipates what's going to happen. So data-driven companies have predictive elements to their analytics. And the last is prescriptive. So prescriptive recommends what to do to reach goals. So leading companies can do prescriptive analytics at scale. And both predictive and prescriptive analytics focus on machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques. So what is artificial intelligence? So I'm sure you've heard things that may have excited you or given you pause about AI. So AI is a simulation of human intelligence and programmed machines to think and act like humans. AI systems generally work by using large amounts of data, analyzing the data for patterns, and using these patterns to make predictions. It may sound like some of the work you do, so I'll continue. AI focuses on 3 main skills: learning, reasoning, and self-correction. In some cases, AI can make fewer errors than humans, especially where being detailed-oriented is essential, or failure is a product of emotionally driven decisions, which AI does not have any emotions. There are 2 types of AI, weak AI and strong AI. So weak AI is trained to perform specific tasks. For example, Apple Siri. Siri is Apple's voice assistant. Siri can't do anything else besides what Siri has been programmed to do. You ask Siri a question, it deciphers what you're asking, finds the possible answers, chooses the best one or group of answers, and relays the answers to you or requests more information in order to clarify. Another example is Netflix's recommendation engine. So based on your previous watching history and behaviors that you have while you're using Netflix, and millions of subscribers who have similar profiles to yours, Netflix can recommend your next movie or series as if it was your best friend in your living room. Although if you're like me and you have family that are on your profile, it's a different ballgame. You get crazy recommendations. The other type of AI is strong AI. So artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence fall into this category. Both are theoretical forms of AI. So artificial general intelligence is where a machine would have equal intelligence to humans. They'd be self-aware. They could solve problems, learn, and plan for the future. Artificial superintelligence would surpass our intelligence and the human brain's ability. AI researchers are exploring its development, and we in Canada are actually lucky to be one of the AI centers of the world. So Canada is a leader in the global AI landscape. So we're recognized internationally for our research, skill, talent, and contributions to AI innovation. In 2017, we were the first to release a nationwide AI strategy called the Pan-Canadian Artificial Intelligence Strategy, ran by CIFAR. The federal government's Scale AI Supercluster Initiative anticipates adding more than $16 billion to the economy and more than 16,000 jobs over the next 10 years. And Canada's ecosystem includes more than 800 AI companies and 670 AI startups. In 2019, Canadian AI companies received 57 VC deals and $658 million US in venture capital, which was a 50% increase from the year before. So here are some examples of AI that you may have already interacted with or you may want to look into. Ava is an AI composer, so it composes soundtrack music. It'd be interesting to see if it has made the soundtrack music for your favorite series or movie. iRobot is the intelligent vacuum cleaner. Maps and navigations, I'm sure you've used it at some point. Facial recognition on your phone. Robo-investing like Wealthsimple. Text editors and autocorrect like Grammarly. Chatbots, live captions, and transcriptions. So when you think about these technologies and others that apply to your domain of expertise, I want you to become curious about how you can work with the technology. So how can the technology augment your workflow And what would it mean for your career progression if you were one of the first adopters of the technology instead of one of the resistors? If you're able to intimately understand how these technologies work, their benefits and their limitations, it would get you out of the doomsday mindset and realize the potential for you to lead and create positive impact in this space. And it'll reduce the risk of automating your role or provide you with skills to transition careers if that's what you want to do. Now, this slide is usually where everyone gets a little bit tense. So here are some qualities that increase the risk of automation. So you may see yourself on this list, but the mere fact that you are sitting in on this session is proof that you can beat the odds. So you're a continuous learner, you're open to learning about new technologies, or you're at least skeptical enough to come and see what it's all about and spend some time with me and Chike. So there are different benefits to AI, the main ones being reduction in human error, an increase in availability. So AI can work as you sleep. AI does not need breaks. There's no decrease in performance as the day goes on, whereas for us, efficiency wanes over the course of a day. It's also good at performing repetitive jobs, so it can be used to automate tasks that are repetitive and boring, allowing us to focus on more creative and strategic work. If you challenge your perspective to see AI tools as a way to augment your work and not your replacement, you can open more opportunities for yourself. So learning the tools to lead transformational projects gives you time to grow into new roles and remove tedious work, leaving you to do higher value work with a more sustained impact. So here are some data rules. So I'm going to try to not repeat what Chike said as best as I can, but for the data product manager, they're responsible for developing and managing data-driven products and working with cross-functional teams to bring the product to market. They require strong product management skills, knowledge of data analysis and visualization, strong communication, leadership skills, and ability to work with cross-functional teams, and also understanding market trends. The next is data analysts. So they're responsible for collecting, cleaning, and analyzing data to generate insights and inform business decisions. So they as well require strong analytical and problem-solving skills and knowledge of statistical and data analysis techniques. And they usually have a programming language that they normally work with, whether it's SQL, Python, or R. And their experience with data visualization tools such as Tableau. And they also have strong communication and presentation skills, which all the data roles normally have. Data scientists are responsible for analyzing and interpreting complex data using advanced statistical and machine learning techniques and communicating those findings to stakeholders. So they require strong analytical skills, knowledge of statistical and machine learning techniques, experience programming, and strong communication skills. A data governance analyst is someone who's responsible for ensuring data quality and integrity by implementing data governance policies and procedures. So they require a strong understanding of data governance best practices and regulations. So they're more like well-versed in things like GDPR, HIPAA, and other data privacy practices. Their experience with data management and data quality tools, and they also have strong analytical and problem-solving skills and knowledge of data privacy laws and regulations. Some more data roles I have is the data engineer. So they're responsible for designing, building, and maintaining the infrastructure and systems needed to store, process, and analyze large amounts of data. Through my experience as a data leader, this is a very important role because it helps enable the other roles that were on the slide before that I spoke about, like the data analyst and the data scientist. So they require strong programming skills, knowledge of database systems, experience with data warehousing and ETL tools, and also experience with cloud computing platforms, and understanding of distributed systems and big data technologies. Machine learning engineer is responsible for designing, developing, and deploying machine learning models. So their focus is on improving model performance and scaling to handle large amounts of data. They also require strong programming skills, knowledge of machine learning and deep learning frameworks, experience with data pre-processing and feature engineering, and they also use cloud computing platforms. The AI engineer develops and implements AI solutions, including natural language processing, computer vision, and decision-making systems. So they require strong programming skills, knowledge of AI techniques, such as natural language processing, computer vision, decision-making systems, and experience with different machine learning libraries and frameworks, and understanding data structures and algorithms. And the deep learning engineer specializes in developing and implementing deep learning models, which are a subtype of machine learning. So they also have strong programming skills, knowledge of deep learning frameworks, and experience with pre-processing and feature engineering. So a self-learning platform that I suggest to learn any of these skills would be DataQuest. So it's self-paced, self-learning. It gives you feedback as you go. They have streams for data analysts, data scientists, and data engineer. They also have standalone courses for specific skill sets. When figuring out a role, which of these you would want to do, what I would do is look at different job postings and see which ones speak to me, which ones I'm interested in, start to speak to people who are in those roles, and then I would plan the educational path, just so that you don't jump into a course, into a certification, and it's actually not what you want to do. So let's dig into why you need to consider this space. So a quick search for AI bias will turn up multiple headlines of shortcomings of products and services that are powered by data. So these are a few that I came across. The headlines here, they cross different industries, they impact different communities. There are headlines about data privacy, about housing, about the health system, about the justice system, social welfare, recruitment, and more. And they spotlight the gaps that exist in the products and services offered. And they also provide an opportunity to show where your innovative ideas could possibly take hold. So these are opportunities to shift the landscape, to build tech that's more inclusive and causes less harm to minoritized people. I also kicked this off with the headlines to ensure we're all on the same page. So product inclusion requires real action because the products and services being developed cause real impacts. Does anyone remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I think they showed this in grade 10 for me. I think that's the first time I was exposed to it. So basically it's that you need to, or you should satisfy the lower levels before you go up, and the top level being self-actualization. So the headline examples that I provided on the other slide fall within fundamental physiological needs and safety needs. However, there is tech that's being created that impacts higher needs like love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. So if tech threatens fundamental needs of physiology and safety, it can impact the journey to self-actualization and leave minoritized communities behind because they're stuck trying to figure out their basics that are on the first two levels. So commitment to data justice begins with an acknowledgement of the fact that oppression is real, historic, ongoing, and worth dismantling. So this commitment is one that we must teach the next generation of data scientists, data citizens, in communities and classrooms if we want to broaden our path towards justice. So this is a quote from Data Feminism by Catherine D'Ignazio and Lauren F. Klein. I do have a reading list on my last slide for you. So an inclusion and equity lens is needed in order to have technology that doesn't further amplify biases held in society and further marginalize minoritized folks. So algorithms amplify biases, and having diverse and inclusive teams mitigates this risk. In the new age of automation and the future of work, minorities run the risk of being left behind. This is reduced by increasing the number of data literate people and upskilling and supporting those currently in data professions. As data is woven into the fabric of many everyday products and services, an inclusive lens is essential. So the dominant group that is disproportionately involved in and rewarded for innovation is subjected to the privilege hazard. So those who suffer from the privilege hazard are poorly equipped to recognize oppression in the world. They lack lived experience, and despite how proximate they get to minoritized people, their lack of lived experience limits their ability to foresee and prevent harm. So the risks aren't only that data sets are biased, but some data is never collected. Some social issues that impact non-dominant groups never receive the attention and resources needed to lead to creative solutions. On the other hand, some minoritized groups experience excessive surveillance. So diversity and inclusion are usually discussed within the confines of building teams and company culture, which is a prerequisite for product inclusion. But I'd like to take it a step further and allow the products and services we build to become more inclusive. So data is a tool that's being used to power many technological innovations of our time. However, many of the technologies rely on historical data, which, if gone unchecked, further amplifies biases that exist in society. So product inclusion is the practice of applying an inclusive lens to the product design process, and as a result, accelerating business growth. Some examples of inclusive tech that has benefited everyone includes closed captioning. So it was initially developed for the hearing impaired, so they would be able to enjoy movies and shows. However, now most people watch Netflix with the captions on. People use it as a way to learn a second language. It has different ways of benefiting everyone, not just those it was invented for. Voice recognition is another widely used technology. However, it was created for blind users so they'd be able to send text and control their devices without having to type in commands. Now we see able-bodied people using voice recognition to make calls and text while on the go. Last but not least, we have predictive text. So this technology was created to speed up the input process and to make typing easier and more efficient. However, it's a great tool for children who are learning how to type. It's inclusive for people with dyslexia or reading and writing disabilities. So predictive text is actually the opposite. It was made for the majority. However, it helps those that are in need of some extra assistance. So if you do not intentionally, deliberately, and proactively include, you will unintentionally exclude. And another quote that I love is that you rarely achieve what you do not intentionally optimize for. So here's my reading list. I'll give you a second to write them down. So there's data feminism, building for everyone, design justice, algorithms of oppression, race after technology, invisible women, weapons of mass destruction, and automating inequality. And I have reached the end of my talk. Here is my contact information if you wanted to reach out to me.
Wow, Kashana, as they say, next level. Beautiful. Love your presentation. It was good and very insightful. Thank you again for taking the time to share all these insights. The reading list is really helpful as well. So I do want to take this time to have a little bit of a fireside chat with both you and Chike. And the first question I have for each of you is, what motivated you to pursue a career in data science? We'll start with you, Chike.
Yeah, good question. So for me, I've always been interested in mathematics. When I started my undergrad, McGill decided to launch a data science program when I was in my second year. And of all the programs that I explored, that was the one that spoke the most to me, mainly because of the fact that like you can apply it to anything. So I was attending conferences on sports and especially basketball analytics. And you know, I kind of started from there, and then I expanded into the career that I have today.
Okay, awesome. And what about you, Kashana? What motivated you to pursue a career in this sector?
Mine was an accident, so it wasn't as structured as Chike's. So I was actually like a financial analyst, and I was covering a maternity leave, and I was going through their data, which I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I was just going through spreadsheets, and I found like a discrepancy of like $1 million that was miscalculated because someone messed up some formula. So I started to get interested in it. And then after the maternity leave, like contract ended, I started trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, which seems to be something that I do every 3 to 5 years. And I was like, oh, I want to be a consultant. And the way that I could be like an ironclad consultant is if I was able to back up all my recommendations with evidence. And then I found out that that was data. And then I started doing a postgrad certificate in data. And I started an internship at the same time as a data analyst. And then I got stuck and I never became a consultant. But it's funny because I consult now. So it was never intentional for me, but it's crazy how I never even knew it was a career path at all.
Awesome. Sometimes we stumble into the greatest opportunities unknowingly, and then we realize in hindsight we were being prepared for it all along. The next question, Chike, is for you. So we know in so many sectors, from politics to policy and various aspects of tech or STEM sectors, there's underrepresentation of people from our community, from the Black community. Why do you think for data science there is an underrepresentation of people from the Black community?
Yeah. Well, I think how you prefaced the question was, I think it's spot on. I think, like Black people, okay, we're not a monolith, but I think like systemically there's lack of opportunity and resource directed towards the Black community. Like in my case, when I was growing up, I played basketball a lot, and like most of my friends, we were seeing ourselves, our goal was to play in the NBA, but not enough of us were talking about becoming data scientists or, any of these type of industries. And it's unfortunate because like the data is so powerful these days, like, in seconds, you have a model that can impact the lives of millions of people. Like in the example I showed with the loans, right? That's approving and not approving a loan, right? So yeah, I think that like there's a form of social engineering and like awareness, I think, as well. And we need more of our young people to pursue university and like take the opportunities as they come to them.
Yes, because it's important to go where we don't see ourselves represented. And for you, Kashana, in terms of the barriers or some of the systemic barriers that need to be removed, what do you think those are? And how can we make the sector of data science more appealing to the Black community and even women as well, who are also underrepresented?
I would say the first thing is even knowing that it exists, that's a career path, that there's so many different career paths. It's not really something that we know about. Also, when we start learning about it, there's that like aversion or like being taught like STEM in a way that does not work for different learning styles. So then if it doesn't work for you, you just don't do it. For example, in grade 11, they told me I didn't need to take any more math. And I clearly did. So I didn't take any more math in grade 11. So I ended up taking sociology and then switching to economics and then having to teach myself the math. But if I would have had teachers that were like, patient with me to teach me the math, I wouldn't have to teach myself eventually. I would have had that support. So having that support, but also it's like you go through the different educational paths. Some of the courses, the traditional courses for like higher learning for data and AI is actually like very expensive. So reducing that barrier as well. But then it's like once you get out and you have to get hired, that's like another hurdle. So there's bias there. And then when you're in the workplace now, it's like it just accelerates. So it's not inclusive. So I feel like it's a whole roadmap of like just different hurdles that we have to jump through to even like stay and get in the space.
Right.
That there's a lot of work that the industry has to do, because right now it's really just a collective of homogeneous looking people. And when you do enter the space and you're one of the first of color or the first Black person, it's not like it's like a pet to threat cycle. Like initially they're welcoming, but then they're not. So it takes a lot in order to break through that ceiling and to stay. So even if you go through the education path, it's like you have to be vigilant to ensure that you are staying in spaces that are actually inclusive.
Yeah, that's really important. And then there's also that entrepreneurial route of taking these skills and putting it into the marketplace because of that is a challenge as well. So the other question is actually for you, Kashana, as well. How has your involvement in the community prepared you for your career, where you are today?
Well, actually, I used to run the radio station at school. So I was used to like managing teams, doing different things like finance. Like I always had like an entrepreneurship spark in me. So I used to run the radio station. I used to run a little restaurant in like 10th grade where I used to give people like lunches and things like that. So like I've always been community centered and entrepreneurial. And I feel like that has helped with the communication skills that are essential to have in data. Like you could not have them. You could be someone who is not able to translate between the teams, like that's fine. But I find that the fact that I'm personable and I understand like both the technical and the business aspects, like that's what's been helping accelerate my career, is being able to go through both. And I think my involvement with different people has helped build those muscles for me.
Awesome. Chike, did you want to add with your experience in community as well and how that helped shape your career?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm very much involved in in like my community, especially in this area of education. So, I'm part of a scholarship board. I'm also a part of the Black History Month committee at my school. And in all of these involvements, even BIT as well, like we have some nice events. And in all of them, I just try to at least sensitize, because AI can affect all the industries, right? So I just try to sensitize and try to encourage people to look at the cross-border or the cross-functional impacts of artificial intelligence. And hopefully get more Black people to know that like, this is a career that exists and that they can excel in.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah. Community, giving back to community really gives us those skills that you can't really learn in school, right? It's a great hands-on learning, which is why I'm involved in my community as well. So for both of you, and we'll start with you, Kishana, what is the best career advice you have received?
For me, it would be trust the timing of your life. So I've noticed that for me anyways, when I go into an organization, being a data person, of course, I have to analyze it. It's about 3 years. It's like a 3-year cycle for me. The first year, honeymoon. It's great. The second year, like I start to see issues or like I'm starting to be excluded, like I'm starting to feel the impacts of like non-inclusion. And I've learned to like trust that timing, to like don't overstay time, and also to know you'll always land on your feet. So even if you are in a toxic situation, like there's ways to get out of it.
Wow, that's really good. Very insightful. That's great advice. And for you, Chike, what's the best career advice you've received?
Yeah, so I have two for this question. The first one kind of ties to what Kishana said. So pick your environment. Especially I know like in data science, people tend to go for the big names, but that may not be the best fit, right? Like you want to be somewhere, especially with like the environment, the team members, the managers, if you have like mentorship opportunities within your teams. So that's the first one. The second one also is always ask questions. Because if you just, like you just try to code or, like not everything can be implemented, and you have to be answering a question, because most data science teams, like, it's almost like you're like a company within a bigger company, in the sense that your team has to go to other teams and then get those teams to become your client so you can implement your solution. So in order to be effective at that, you always have to be answering their question, because if you're not, then your team won't get funded, and then your project, like your team won't have opportunities.
Okay, wow. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Now, for each of you, what is the one thing about the data science sector that you'd like to see change? We'll start with you, Kishana.
I would say the barriers for underrepresented groups to enter and to thrive, especially with the acceleration of like the different applications for AI.
Yeah.
We know they're not being built by diverse teams.
Yeah.
And the more it advances, the less opportunities it gives for us to enter. So like reducing those barriers is something that I definitely think we should change.
That's essential. And for you, Chike?
Yeah, so also adding to that point, I would say improving the democratization of AI. So right now we're seeing that it's mainly big companies that are starting to take the power of artificial intelligence, and you can see they're even like transnational, right? So a company here in, you have like, for example, Facebook has access to data for someone in like Asia, Africa, Canada, in a way that governments don't. So like they're becoming very powerful. And now even the model building is becoming more and more centralized, where like Google, like you can build a model using Google's AutoML platform. And, you don't need someone that really knows the code. You just have to use like their tools, or ChatGPT, for example. So I'll say improving the democratization of AI and like data literacy amongst the community.
And those are some good things. So this is really helpful. Now, my other question is, we do have a good number of attendees, and many of whom stayed right until this point of our session. And thank you to all of you. We really appreciate it. Now, with everything you said, because Chike, you gave some good technical insights and highlighted the kind of skills we need and all of that, which is great. And it's a lot to take in. This is why the session's recorded, so all of you can rewatch it and even make some notes. But I wanted you to let attendees know, what are 3 things you hope they will take away from your talk, Chike?
Yeah, for me, well, the first one is be consistent in your learning. So yeah, always be learning. Like there's models that come out all the time. There's probably going to be something that comes out tomorrow that's going to force you to have to learn that. Second one, be confident in your ability. So especially when you're presenting something to a partner, you have to be very confident in what you did, and that also means like you have to have put in the work. But like if you're not confident, then like people sometimes don't have faith in AI. They'll just think it's a buzzword.
Yeah.
So be confident and also be realistic. So don't overcommit. Always be like thinking, okay, like this is my reputation. So you have to like be always cognizant of maintaining.
Awesome. That's really good. And Kishana, for yourself, what are 3 things you hope our attendees will take away from your talk today?
The first one would be that you're not too late. So I know you're probably seeing a lot of like cool AI things coming out and you're like, oh, maybe I missed this career path. You're not too late. If anything, it's the easiest time to learn is right now because there's so many different education pathways and platforms for you to use. Being intentional about your career growth, like do the research before you do a certificate. It doesn't make sense to do a certificate and you don't want to do the work. Also, like there's different career paths won't require certain skills after a while. So it's really problem solving. Like you need to be good at problem solving and understanding the underlying of what you're building. For example, like someone can build a model on ChatGPT, but like, can they explain the model? Can they apply it? Like they probably can't. Like you need to be able to understand the underlying, and those are the people that are going to have like solid retention in the workplace.
That's really, really helpful. Awesome. Thank you for those tips. And my last question to both of you, complete the following sentence. And we'll start with you, Chike. We need data scientists from the Black community because...
well, we're highly underrepresented, and the future of the world is going to be run by algorithms. So we need to be in those decision-making tables because algorithms are going to be supporting the decision-making. So Black people need to inherently be there because the models are very much prone to bias.
Awesome. And Kishana, we need data scientists from the Black community because...
we need inclusive innovation and to avoid colonization with algorithms.
Awesome. That's good. And thank you again to both of you for, your insights and the presentations you both did were just really, really phenomenal and amazing. So we do want to open it up to folks who have joined us who do have a couple questions. You can feel free to use the chat. We also have a Q&A button, or if you like, you can be unmuted and just ask it. So I'll just give a couple minutes to see if there's anyone who has some questions for our guest speakers today. And I know we did answer some of the questions in the chat. Thank you, Chike, for doing that because there was a couple questions that came through. And also just to point out, I did put the link for Kishana's organization so that you can check it out, learn more about what they do, follow them on social media. And if you're in the Toronto area, February 3rd, please do check out the conference launch coming up. Our team plans to be there as well. So does anyone have any questions for our speakers? Okay, and we tried our best to cover questions that we may have anticipated in our, discussion and the way that they did the presentation. So before I move on to our thank you from our events director, Alyssa, I do want to give a huge plug to BIT Foundation's Executive Director, Dennis Schultz, who did join us for a session, is still here with us. And just want to see, Dennis, if you wanted to say a few words before we do our thank yous.
No, I thank everyone for taking time out of their day, especially on a Saturday, to participate. So we appreciate you. And this presentation will be posted on the Foundation's YouTube channel for the recording, probably within the next 24 hours. So check it out, share with your friends, and visit blacksintechnology.org for all of our other events and programs and things that you can get into either free or no cost. So that's my plug for the foundation. Thanks, Stacey.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. So I do like to turn it over to Alyssa Gordon. She is the events director for Blacks in Technology Toronto chapter, and she will do our wrap up. Over to you, Alyssa.
Thanks, Stacey. As mentioned, I am Alyssa Gordon, the events director for BIT Toronto. So I want to take this time to thank our speakers, Kashana Peck and Chike Odenigbo, for being part of this event. I really hope everyone enjoyed themselves and learned a lot. I know I did. We can't close this event without taking the time to thank all of you who attended today. We really appreciate your support. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank the entire BIT Toronto team for planning and organizing this event. It was executed with so much passion and was definitely a success. If you aren't already plugged into our social media pages, please follow us on LinkedIn at BIT Toronto and on Instagram at bit.toronto. In celebration of Black History Month, on February 9th, Procurement Assistance Canada will be hosting a Black Business Expo, which will feature various federal agencies and Black-led organizations, including BIT Toronto. This is a great opportunity to learn about how to do business with the federal government, understand the procurement process, and learn about resources for Black business owners. On February 10th, Blacks in Technology Foundation is hosting a virtual career fair. So whether you are looking for your first job in tech or you're a seasoned professional, this is a great opportunity that will put you in contact with organizations that are making an effort to add diversity to their teams. Also, keep an eye out as the annual BitCon conference will be in Nashville in the fall. You can register for upcoming events and review past events via the link that I've dropped in the chat. In August of last year, our team collaborated with Spotify for our first in-person event to host Tech Founders Filling Equity and Access Gaps. Please check out the video replay if you weren't able to attend. It was an amazing event. So last to end things off, I just want to say thank you again to everybody, and this concludes our event, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Saturday. Back to you, Stacy, if you wanted to say anything else.
All right, awesome. That concludes our session for today. Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks again to everyone and to those who joined us. And we'll be in touch again. Our social media is where you can get updates with everything we're doing. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday.